Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. We've all heard about the fundamentalist religious group, but I've never had the chance to talk to somebody who actually was a part of that group, who grew up with that life and endured years of abuse from being a part of that life. My guest today, Alexis, has been a part of that life. She has suffered the long-term abuse and she has CPTSD. She loves history, music, loves to travel, and now she co-owns and operates a podcast production company. And she is also a sexual assault advocate when she's not podcasting. Tonight, we're going to talk about her journey, how she got out of that life, and to where she is today on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. Alexis, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So did your parents, were they part of the fundamentalist group, religious group, or how did that even become a thing?
Well, I guess we'd have to kind of go back a little bit. Both of my parents had religious backgrounds. My mother grew up Lutheran. I was actually married in a Lutheran church to my ex-husband. My father had a bit of, Pentecostal Baptist kind of background. And so we were kind of raised in kind of a bouquet of different sorts of churches. Some of them were Assemblies of God. Some of them they were all Christian churches, but they were all just kind of different denominations. And so we dabbled a little bit. And so if a doctrine of one church didn't really line up with what my parents thought was appropriate, then we would move to another church. And oftentimes it wasn't really about doctrine. It was more about relationship problems within the church, people not getting along, things like that. But anyway, I did grow up with a very, very heavy background in the Pentecostal movement. That was the first church I have most of my core memories from. And it was a tiny little church. I felt like half of the church congregation was related to the pastor. So there was a lot of politics in that tiny little church. There were some fun times, but there was definitely a lot of things that happened that scared me. And it wasn't always a nice place to go. I would always set foot in the church, never knowing what was about to happen, and always a little scared. Yeah.
Wow. Because at that point, you would have seen and experienced abuse for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about Christianity, and I know that, this may be hard for a lot of people to hear, and that's okay. And I might get some flack for this. I grew up, it was very fundamental. I feel like the Christian religion is sort of set up where every family can kind of become their own kind of little church and cult, if you will, if you want to go as far as saying that. A lot of the control lies with the patriarch, the father, the head of the household, and it just sort of kind of trickles down from there. So there's a lot of dominating types of situations where I was always taught to be submissive. First of all, I'm a child and I'm a female. Plus I was little, I just had to submit to everyone around me, even though there were times I felt very uncomfortable and I felt like this is not right. I don't feel right about this. It was very confusing growing up as a child. You hear all these nice stories, these Bible stories, but some of them are very graphic. And these are the stories that they start little children off with. And so they start with the conditioning and really scary stories, but also very loving stories at the same time, kind of intermixed. And so you kind of grow up with this kind of confused idea of who God is and does he really love me, or is he going to punish me like these people?
Right. If I don't follow X, Y, and Z path, that's been laid out for me, meaning, as you say, submissive wife, do what the father says, like the husband says, follow these rules. Don't be gay. Don't be trans. Don't be of another culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And don't
Everything
be
will be
unequally
fine.
yoked with your partner. You have to marry someone who is in line with your biblical, standard. And so that was tricky as well. And so all of my life, I grew up thinking, well, I have to do what God wants me to do.
Right.
But even if I felt like this is what I need to do, I had pastors, I had elders, I had people in authority over me saying, this isn't what God wants you to do. We think this is what God wants you to do. We want you over here doing this thing. We don't think this is what God wants. And all of these areas, I felt used. I felt like I wasn't challenged in the ways that I wanted to be challenged. And I was also doing a lot of work for one person. And I wasn't always fairly compensated for it either. And as an adult, you reach that burnout phase where you've grown up in the religion. Not only have you grown up in it, but you were there at church pretty much almost every single day. It was a way of life for me. It wasn't just something you did on Sundays. And so as an adult, you're used to this and you reach a point of burnout. You don't realize you're burning out. What's happening is your body is saying, I cannot live this way anymore. And I don't really know what else to do, but this isn't it. So, then I just started to kind of explore my own thoughts and feelings within things that I had suppressed for a long time because of the direction of my pastors and religion.
So do you think that instead of it being called burnout, do you actually think it was more abuse?
Oh, yes. I think it was definitely a bit of both because, and somebody said this, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Recovering from Religion podcast. They have a whole podcast, a whole organization that supports people coming out of religion.
Oh, okay. No, I hadn't.
So I want to throw that out there. Recovering from Religion. It's great. I was watching an episode on their YouTube channel, and this woman, she had said, of course, you're indoctrinated when you're a child. You're raised in it. You know the rules. You're very much conditioned to live a certain way. Right. But as an adult, you start to, even though you don't really like these certain things, you're feeling uncomfortable. You feel like this is not okay, but you still, I want to do this for God. I'm supposed to sacrifice myself, and this is supposed to be easy, and it's not supposed to feel good, and everything will be fine once I get to heaven. So you're pushing yourself, and eventually you have no identity. You don't even know how you feel anymore because you're not allowed to pay attention to your feelings. It is definitely abuse. Over the years, my confidence, my self-esteem, even my own interests were all stripped away from me. I had no idea who I was. So major identity crisis after I came out of that. Huge, for sure.
Huge. Yeah, because all these people are saying, be this, do that, stay here, do that, do this right. You're doing this wrong. And you're like, who am I? And because they are thinking and doing and guiding you in their vision, not what you're meant to be.
Right. I mean, perfect example. When I was 18, and for years and years, I had been a part of a church that heavily encouraged us to attend Bible college. I was always one of those people where they would say, oh, you're blessed and God has a special plan for you. You're special. You're meant to be a speaker and you're meant to minister to people. And we really think you should go to Bible college to help you with that.
Right.
And so all my life, I've been encouraged to go to Bible college. But I was thinking, first of all, my parents aren't really for any college. They didn't really like public education or even paying the tuition of a private education was something that wasn't really within our reach anyways.
Did they feel that women shouldn't be educated?
My mother, for sure, definitely. And my father, he struggled in education. He had trouble reading. My mother did everything for him, basically. I mean, it wasn't like he couldn't read, but he was a very slow reader. He had to take a lot of classes just to kind of keep up in his job and things like that. Right. And so he kind of gave all those responsibilities to my mother. But growing up, I didn't really have a very close relationship with my father. My mother kind of kept us away from him when he would come home. That's a whole other story. But she
Wow.
would definitely say things like, yeah, a woman's place is in the home. You need to be a submissive wife. You need to follow whatever God says, your husband is thinking what he needs to do. That's your job to support him, not to have your, go off with your own ideas. That's a sign of rebellion. Those were things that my mother taught me. And if I was ever feeling overly emotional or overwhelmed about these things, having a hard time articulating my feelings, because I didn't have practice in that, my mother would accuse me of having a demon because I was overwhelmed and she didn't know how to, maintain control of her child.
Right.
Her child was
Right.
upset. She didn't want having a child who was upset because then people would be like,
what's wrong with her? Yes.
And
you're not allowed to show emotion.
Yes. And that's my mother's main objective. Don't let anybody know that there's anything wrong, at home, because we're leaders. We're supposed to be an example. Yes. But things were not nice at home for me at all. Aside from religion, it was a very abusive household, very dysfunctional. Again, it wasn't all bad. When you're in an abusive relationship, it's not like, oh, this person hates me all the time, I think I'm going to go live with them and be with them. It's not like that. No. And with religion, it's the same way. You're love bombed. They tell you, the first song they teach you in the beginning is Jesus Loves You. That's the first song I grew up singing, very, very small.
Right.
They love bomb you. It's all Jesus loves you. Jesus wants this for you. God wants this for you. And until you realize, wait a minute, I have no sense of self. I have no say in anything. I have no say over my finances. I have no say over whether or not, I can improve this marriage. I have no say in where I can work. It just, I had no control over any aspect of my life, including my own personal interests. I used to have panic attacks picking out my clothes in the closet because I was afraid to choose what I really wanted to wear because I was afraid of being immodest. Like right now, I am kind of, it's therapeutic for me. I'm wearing like a spaghetti strap top, which is something I never, was not allowed to wear growing up, or it was considered very immodest and
very risque.
Yeah, just lots of judgment based on your wardrobe. And now it's just like I'm just learning to wear what I want to wear when I feel like, what I'm comfortable in. It's not about, I'm not responsible for how other people feel about my choices. And that's something that in the Christian church, you are responsible. You are responsible to men as a woman. You're not allowed to act or behave in a way that would be attractive to a man. You could just walk by him. We all know this. You walk by a man, you don't even know him. He's attracted to you. What are you going to do? That's not your fault. But in the Christian world, we're taught that it's our responsibility as women to cover ourselves and make sure they don't look lustfully at us. And so already, even as a young child,
that's drilled in you.
Yes, that's drilled in. And so there's a lot of trauma with, wardrobe and how I look, my appearance. I'm wearing red lipstick. These are all things that I, never really would have done before.
So what made you decide in the end? What was the final straw that you were like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not who I am. This is not who I want to be. And this is not the life I want. What was kind of the final straw that made you go,
Well, I feel like there were kind of three things that kind of intersected there that all kind of happened simultaneously. I was feeling burnt out within the church. I was feeling physically burnt out. I was feeling unappreciated. I was feeling pigeonholed. Felt like I was put in a box. I didn't have any freedom. I felt judged. It didn't feel good. And so I was considering, I don't think I want to work in the church anymore. And I don't know if I even want to go back on Sundays. I don't think I want to attend. I don't think I need to. I think I can, work on my relationship with God at home privately. I was starting to make steps out. It wasn't something where like a light bulb went off and like, oh, I'm leaving the church.
Right. It was
there was a
gradual.
lot. It was a deconstructive process for sure. But I knew I had to pull back because I was feeling the physical signs. My doctor kept saying, you're too stressed. You need to cut back on your stress. So I kept minimizing things. And then at the end, I was like, I'm still stressed. What else can I do to minimize the stress in my life? And then I was thinking about my relationships. And now fast forward, I'm married with 4 children. My marriage is not doing well.
Right.
That's a whole other, story. But I'm also noticing I'm having, I've always had a difficult time in a relationship with my mother. I'd always struggled having a relationship with my mother. Right. And I never felt like I had enough of my father. And so that's already kind of a challenge. My parents at the time were not respecting my boundaries. They were not listening to me. They weren't respecting my privacy. I mean,
right.
I don't know if you've ever heard of narcissistic abuse.
Yes.
Yes. I have members of my family who have been kind of indirectly diagnosed with this disorder because they refuse to go to counseling. They don't believe in it.
Yes. Well, because they don't believe that they're wrong.
They don't believe that they're wrong.
They don't believe that they're wrong. Yeah.
Hence the estrangement. I could never hold a conversation with my mother and get honesty from her. It was just a lot of gaslighting, a lot of, that's not how it happened, and you're remembering it wrong. And they take ownership. History. Yeah, but right? I started noticing all these similarities between my mother and the God of the Bible. And when I started to put those things together, I was like, whoa, this is a little too much. Yeah. This is a little bit big. I'm starting to see, this is why I feel like this all the time when I'm at church. This is why I can't build healthy relationships. This is why I'm overworked, because it's just all about the agenda. It's all about the greed. It's just all about what they want. They don't really care about people in the church. I've seen churches hoard money, saying that they're going to help the poor. They do nothing of the kind. They shame people. Not all churches do this. Of course, this is the famous thing. Not all churches are like this, but I can guarantee 100% all churches are toxic. And if you are there long enough, like I was, you will find it in every single one.
So do you think that there is a God, a universe, a spiritual power, or whatever you want to call it, Allah? Do you think that there is something of that nature? Or has this completely shattered your belief in that?
That's what some people would say. Oh, you had a bad experience, so therefore that's why you don't believe in God. You're angry. But if this show was a lot longer, I could go through my whole entire deconstructive phase. And, because I studied the Bible. I was a pastor in the church for years. I was raised in this, I was homeschooled, studying the Bible constantly, read it backwards and forwards, went through it in a year, every year, school. I mean, you name it. I memorized huge portions, studied it in and out. But after I left the church, I asked myself that. I said, does this mean I don't believe in God? And I had some friends that were non-believers, and I had spent a lot of time talking with them. We were made to fear non-believers growing up. You shouldn't talk to atheists. You shouldn't talk to non-believers. They will try to lure you out of the church. It's like, no, I was already on my way out. It's okay. Yeah. But talking with them, they would ask me these questions. Yeah. They weren't trying to, coerce me into any sort of belief. They're just like, what do you think? It's like, you know what? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know that there is a God out there. I don't know how we came to be. I think it's so cool, though, that we're here and that this world is just, it's amazing. It's crazy. We have feelings and we're separated. We have separate bodies, but yet we want to feel connected to each other. And we're always working towards that connection. Just humanity is just, I don't know. This world is just crazy to me. I'm fascinated. I love science. But I can't say that I feel for sure that there is a God or a creator. And I'm not even saying that there's not. And to me, that's something that now that I'm out of the faith, I don't have to rack my brain about constantly. I don't have to have anxiety about that
Right.
Because when you're in the Christian faith, you have to know. If you are not sure, you will not go to heaven. And so when you grow up in this, you see contradiction after contradiction, hypocrite after hypocrite, lie after lie. And then, it's just, you learn that, after all of that, you're just like, you know what? It's okay. I don't need to know all the answers. I just know that this is something that I don't want. And if I found value in anything, I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to cultivate that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
when you're deconstructing your whole entire thought process around religion, what was one moment that you felt like I'm free?
Oh, wow. It was a process. It took some time because, when you walk away from the church like I did, I pretty much lost all of my friends and my family. And this is something I talk about a lot on my podcast show, When the Bow Breaks. We talk about a lot of, estrangement and religion. People don't want to talk to you. They think you've fallen away. You're evil. Some people believe that I'm evil. I'm possessed. I have demons, and I'm out there to hurt my family, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I absolutely love my family. They're really cool people. They're funny. They're freaking smart and hilarious. But we just don't get along. And that's okay. And I'm okay with loving them afar. I'm okay with loving them from afar. And I'm okay with being open for that opportunity to reconnect. But there has to be boundaries. And, I try to keep a healthy, sort of separation. I don't know if I'm trailing off a little bit from what you were asking me, but, estrangement in religion, that's something that can be very complicated. And it can be overwhelming to try to navigate that by yourself. And when you lose your entire community and your friends, you feel very alone. And that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I was like, I have nobody to talk to other than my therapist and, strangers online that I've never met. So I went looking for a podcast and couldn't find any about estrangement. So I was like, well, I know how to press record. And I can do a few things. Let's ask around and see if I can, have some friends fill in some holes for me. And so that's what I did. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm just a normal person, who's had some experiences, some rough times, but I love connecting with people. I love talking to people and
finding yourself.
Yeah. Finding myself. And I think that, like what you said earlier, when was that moment where you just kind of like, it takes time. I had to learn to trust my community. I had to learn to trust everyone around me as not being evil or having some evil agenda towards me. So it takes years, and I'm still kind of peeling the layers for sure. Like I have complex PTSD. Some things I'm always going to be a little crazy, about certain things, certain triggers, because this stuff, especially in early childhood, it programs your body. And it's not even like I may not even be thinking about something, but my body's like, whoa, what's that smell? I don't like that. That reminds me of something really scary. And so that, I just kind of freak out and have to take a minute.
As you said at the top, you said at the top, nobody ever made you feel safe.
Yes.
Right.
I've had to create that safety for myself. I cannot rely on anybody else to do that. I've tried. That is something I've had to learn to trust myself. And I had to grow up really fast in some ways.
You had to survive.
In some ways, I'm totally underdeveloped. I'm a little child. And so I've had to kind of figure out how to heal my inner child and grow up at the same time. And it's a struggle. But inner child that's a thing. I used to, make fun of people for talking about their inner child until I had to discover mine. I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's a real thing
anymore. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Sometimes we got to look back and go, you know what? That 4-year-old needs a hug.
Yes. And I had to do that yesterday. I was feeling overwhelmed and out of control. And I was like, I need somebody. Like I felt like I needed a parent, or somebody to help me with the situation. I was feeling abandoned. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Little Lexi does not like to feel this way. She needs to know she's not being abandoned. It's just a feeling. It will pass. Like, and I had to remind myself, I'm here. I'm going to
Mhm.
fix this. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
I
I
will
taught
keep you
myself that.
safe.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
And it's a practice.
absolutely.
I've had to apologize to myself too. You have to learn to forgive yourself for when you mess up, because we can't expect to be perfect, especially when we didn't have the tools that we should have had when we were
And
younger.
who is perfect anyway? Like,
Nobody.
let's be honest. Nobody is perfect. It's all a
Yeah, and
facade.
again, rejoice in your imperfections. It's just,
Yes.
we're all unique.
And we're human.
And we're human. That's right.
How do you parent your children differently? I mean, obviously, are they, because your ex-husband,
Mm-hmm.
was a part of the religion?
Yeah. I've actually been meaning to get him on a podcast episode so we can actually talk about that. So, we do still communicate.
Yeah.
We do have a very still functioning co-parenting relationship. Could use some work in some areas. Of course, there's reasons why we're not married anymore. But
Yes.
I've been meaning to talk to him about that publicly, because we did have to kind of change what we were doing.
Yeah.
Those things were triggering me. And it all kind of bubbled up. I had no idea. I was still raising them in the Christian way, very authoritarian, very, there was spanking involved. I'm going to say I used to spank my kids. I was spanked a lot when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped that. I was like, this is just lazy parenting. It's like, if I can't teach my kids other than hitting them, then I'm not a parent. And so we've learned about gentle parenting and just learning how to help them express their feelings.
Yes.
Because I didn't have that. I wasn't allowed to do that. And so it's so hard to teach your kids how to do that when you're still learning how to do that. So I get a lot of support. I read books. I talk about this all the time in my counseling. I talk to my kids' friends' parents, be like, am I the only one who's having to deal with this? You're never sure. You want that group around you to be like, no, it's okay. This is totally normal. Or be like, yeah, that's kind of messed up. Maybe we could, help you out and figure this out. I need that team around me. And I'm so thankful that I have that.
Because the reality is what you were taught and what you were shown your whole entire life
totally
isn't the way. Yeah, isn't the way that you want to do. So you're absolutely right. You have to learn something completely different, of a different way of parenting. Because sadly, these children, as I say a million times, they don't come with manuals.
No. And each one is different,
Very
and I have
different.
4, and it's like, I feel like I have to get different parent, for each of them,
Yes, and you probably do.
Yeah, I do. And I get accused of it sometimes with my kids. It's like, you don't do this. That's like, well, she, she's just a different person. It's like, she doesn't complain about this. It's okay. It's garbage day. Some of them like taking out the garbage. Some of them do not. And they're like, why are you, why does she never get in trouble? It's, just helping them kind of see there's a reason why they don't respond that way. Just they're different. They're making different choices, and the consequences are there. You can choose to do this or choose to have this consequence. I'm trying to show them they have choices. I don't want them to say, you need to do this or you should do this. Even my boyfriend, he has to kind of like pull me back a little bit. Well, hey, should they, or do they have choices? And that is so helpful for me, because I didn't have those choices. So, like I said, having that support team around me is just, it's really beneficial. So like little tweaks in my parenting just every day.
Because you didn't, like you said, you didn't have choices. Your choices were taken away. Your choice was to toe the line.
Right. Yeah. Pull the boat, pull the load, do whatever anybody asked you to do, and without pay and without any breaks. And I'll sleep when I'm dead. That was my thing.
Now, what would you say to your children if they said to you, hey, Mom, I want to be involved in religion. I want to go all in. How would you handle that?
Well, I suppose I would have a lot of questions for them, because I would find it interesting. First of all, because, the older children, they still remember quite a lot. So to imagine them going back into that is just I can't imagine. They're totally done with that now. But the younger ones, you know, I have a feeling that maybe they'll get kind of curious and things like that. But I would just tell them, you know what? There's no religion that is going to have the key to your happiness. There really isn't. I know some people claim that it does, but every element that makes someone happy can be found within ourselves. And so I would tell my kids, please do not depend on a religion for your happiness or for your mental health. And please do not get sucked into a faith that strips you away of your identity and of your own way of thinking. And this is kind of why I don't participate in a religion, because it was damaging to me. And I've studied other religions too, and I feel like most of them are kind of set up the same way, and I just choose not to partake. That's just me. But I do have beliefs. I do have rules that I follow and codes that I sort of live by. And, you know, I have sort of my own religion that I kind of follow. It's something that's kind of, you know, developing as I get older.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'm almost 40. I mean, I still got plenty of time to figure out a lot more and enjoy a lot more life still.
And have love in your life.
Yes.
That is the true kind of love.
Yes.
And not a love with consequences.
Right. Yes. Or a love that's like, you don't get it unless you do this. And that was something that was a big problem I have with the Christian church. You don't get to go to heaven unless you love God. But in order to love God, you have to do all these things.
Yep.
And live this way and ignore all these other things that God's doing. Because it's, he has reasons for things. You know, God has a reason for everything.
Right.
They are. So there's a lot of excuses for, toxic behavior and things like that. And so that's why I just don't.
Well, how many times have we heard, God has put you on this path for a reason. And you're like, I don't know if God would want me to go through this life.
Right.
And have all these things happen to me. I'm kind of thinking there's not one that would think this was okay.
Right. Exactly. And I would just say, why would a God want me to be in this situation? Why would he want this for my kids?
Right.
And if so, I don't want to worship God like that. I don't want to believe in a God. I don't want to support a God like that who wants us to hit our kids. I don't want to support a God, whether or not he exists, that gay people are bad. I'm bisexual, by the way. I thought I, might want to put that out there. I haven't really done that publicly, but I thought it might kind of feel good. So, and
how does it feel?
It feels great. It's like
fantastic.
I don't have to be ashamed of myself. I didn't realize it until I was in my 20s, because I was always attracted to men and women the same way. I never could differentiate. So I was like, until I was in my 20s, I was like, wait a minute, I think this is a thing. And I think it's like, okay, I understand myself now. And that's like a big thing. Understanding myself is a big thing. I didn't know who I was at all.
And the problem is, can you imagine, right? You being a younger person, if you had figured that out when you were a child, the torment you would have had to go through, because that didn't fit the mold of the box that
and I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because I don't want to say too much, but I have a family member who's very close to me, and she has been dealing with that. Very, very young. She knew when she was younger, and she was going through that. And I am thankful that I didn't discover that until I was older, because that would have just been one more thing, that I would have had to, struggle with. I'm glad that, my psyche was like, okay, you're an adult. I think you can handle this now. And let's ask some questions and let's figure some things out. I was never allowed to even go there in my own head. Just the freedom to think is a big thing. And I think like most religions, they take away from that, because they have a book you need to follow. They have rules you need to follow. They have, rituals that you need to perform. Right. And in order to make this happen or this happen. I did a lot of those things and I never saw any results. So I was just like, I don't know if I want to waste another 80 40 years on the same thing, that's not really doing what it's supposed to do. So
yeah. And I bet you
Yeah.
feel 1,000 times lighter.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I find life beautiful now. I don't find it scary. I'm not afraid of people like I used to be. I still do get scared and timid and shy and shaky. And even now, like, I'm nervous to be live and I'm nervous to, have people watching me. But that's okay. You know, it's a work in progress. But I mean, I can live my life and not constantly fear heaven and hell or fear, oh God, I didn't stop and tell that person about Jesus. Like, is that going to be like a knock against me? Like when I get into heaven, like you feel bad about little things like that. Like just passing somebody, you feel like you have to tell everybody, but that's impossible. And just there's such a heavy load of responsibility to convert people. And so I mean, even just minus that is just, I mean, life is great. I mean, I can sit and enjoy my life with my kids and I can live in the moment. I'm not living in the past in the Bible. I'm not living in the future in heaven. I'm living right here where I am
right now
on this beautiful planet with, my beautiful friends and family and new people that I get to meet every day. It's great.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. And when you talk, like your voice, even just from when we were talking about where you were to where you are, even just your tone has changed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, when I'm talking about it, my body is like, ooh, because it's going there in my head and it's, you can tell like the anxiety of it was a very scary place. My childhood was not always fun. There's some scary stuff. If you want to hear more about me, I have links on my page that there's other podcasts. You can search Alexis Arralyn on YouTube and then a bunch of stuff will come up about my indoctrination and my Pentecostal history and all that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with everyone. And if anybody wants to connect, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Yep. I'm
she's
all
there.
Over the place.
And if you're in a situation where you think you want to be able to get out of that kind of lifestyle, listen to this.
Yeah. I'm working on a new podcast that talks about estrangement and religion. So if you're experiencing estrangement because of a religion or a faith or a member of your family is, feel free to contact me on Facebook or however you can. The show's not up, so you can't go search it yet. But the existing show is called When the Bow Breaks. www.wtbbpod.com.
Hang on. I'm fast. Okay, so
www.wtbbpod.com.
Let me just throw that up in the chat here.
Yeah.
And then people can see it.
There it is.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. If you think anybody could benefit from hearing this story, then share. Share, comment, and if you need help, go there.
Yes.
www.wtbbpod.com. Thank you so much again, Alexis, for joining me on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. And everybody, we'll see you next time on What Has Changed Your Life.